Former President Donald Trump put on an apron today to pull off a political stunt in Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Do you want to give it a try?
I do.
Working the fryer to try and claim without any evidence that Vice President Kamala Harris didn't work at a McDonald's while in college, as she said she did.
She never worked at McDonald's.
At a rally in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh Saturday, Trump issued some of his harshest insults of Harris yet.
You're a vice president. The worst. You're the worst vice president.
And the fact that these people are accusing him of a stage-managed thing, of course the president has to have security because there have been 2 attempts on his life in the last 8 weeks. He can't just walk into a McDonald's and sign a W-9 and actually go on the payroll. That's just not how this works, especially given the security threats on his life. But look, he was interacting with people. He was talking to the employees. He was giving people food, and he was just being, I think, what he does best, which is just being among the people, talking to them about what they care about. He showed, I think, genuine interest in the employees and their lives and where they came from and what they were actually doing in their job. And that's something you can't stage and you can't fake. That is just the genuine person that Donald Trump is. And it's why I think a lot of working people, even though, of course, he's a successful real estate billionaire, have this emotional connection to Donald Trump. You can't make up that kind of connection. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris has tried and failed. And I think it's why her campaign is flailing a little bit right now, is because she goes into Sheets and does 4 takes of her buying Doritos. Donald Trump just goes into McDonald's and he is who he is, and people love him.
All right, guys, so everybody knows that yesterday, former President Trump broke the internet by working at McDonald's, okay? President Trump was in the kitchen cooking fries, okay? Cooking fries while cooking Kamala Harris for lying about working at McDonald's in an effort to appeal to middle-class voters. Now, President Trump can brag about having worked at McDonald's longer than Kamala Harris has, okay? Because she's never worked there, and Trump worked there for like 15 minutes, okay? But it was a great day. It was an excellent day. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of joy, which is clearly something that the mainstream liberal media doesn't like anymore, right? You guys remember at the beginning of Kamala's campaign how they were talking about how much they loved the fact that her campaign was so joyful and they didn't like the darkness of the presidential campaign season, right? Now, all of a sudden, there's not really much to be joyful about when it comes to Kamala Harris and her campaign. And Trump has all the momentum and the joy, and they don't like joy anymore, right? However, you cannot doubt the fact that this move from President Trump was genius, okay? Him going out there as a billionaire, okay? Working class billionaire, right? And appealing to working class voters by working at McDonald's. Again, you cannot deny that this was a good move, right? This was a great move for his campaign. It was great optics. Now, of course, as I said yesterday, you're going to have some outlets like MSNBC that's just going to hate, right? Which they did. They ended up hating the move, right? Hating on Trump. They called it a publicity stunt. They said it was staged, yada, 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 okay? This is what they said. But even Trump deranged lunatics like Cenk Yogurt have come out and said, yeah, this was a great move. It really humanizes Trump. It helps him appeal to working class voters. You have Democrats who are going on record also basically saying that this was a genius move as well.
I thought it was just a brilliant strategic move, and he had fun doing it, and clearly the people loved it, Natasha.
Josh, do you agree? A brilliant strategic move, because meanwhile, we do see Trump saying Harris never worked there, the Harris campaign having to defend that. What do you make of this back and forth?
I agree. I do. And if Democrats can't be honest, even when we may detest our opponent, then it's going to be counterproductive for us as a party. It was genius. He took what is such an infinitesimal attack that she never worked at McDonald's. It wouldn't even make the radar in a senior class president campaign, let alone a presidential campaign. And he turns it into another news cycle that he dominates. And quite frankly, it shows his ability to do retail. And I think it should spur the Harris campaign in these last 16 days to do alternative media, to take back, really the narrative and to do shows like Joe Rogan, to do a chicken shop date and utilizing that alternative media, because if Trump continues to dominate the media dialogue for the next 16 days, it's not going to be good for us on election day.
So you have Trump deranged individuals, progressives like Cenk from TYT. You have Democrats also going on record saying that this is a genius move, this is a good move. And now you have a CNN panel, right? The CNN panel this morning came out and praised Trump for this move as well. You can't make this stuff up. Take a look.
Back to when the world knew Trump simply as a real estate mogul and a New York City tabloid fixture.
A big and tasty for just $1? How do you do it? What's your secret? Together, Grimace, we could own this town.
Now Trump is stepping behind the counter at McDonald's, this time for a campaign stop in the battleground state of Pennsylvania.
I'm looking for a job, and I've always wanted to work at McDonald's, but I never did. I'm running against somebody that said she did, but it turned out to be a totally phony story. So if you don't mind, I want to work the French fry counter.
So Trump there once again claiming without evidence that Kamala Harris never worked at McDonald's in the 80s. That dispute inspiring this campaign stop over the weekend. Trump, of course, no stranger to the Golden Arches, his love for fast food well documented. In 2019, Trump hosted Clemson's football team after they won the national championship and served up this spread of French fries and burgers at the White House. And during his Sunday visit to McDonald's, Trump again put on the apron. He manned the fry station. He handed out food through the drive-thru window to customers who, according to the Washington Post, were pre-screened by the Secret Service. The restaurant was closed to the public for the event.
I love salt. Wait a minute, I spilled some. I'm very superstitious.
Our panel has returned. So I have to say, when I first saw that image of Trump kind of hanging out the drive-thru window, a part of me thought, wow, is that real? I never thought he would do something like that. The Trump that we saw in 1999 in that old ad is the one that was much more familiar to me. Like, look, we're going to run this town, right? Like someone who owns a McDonald's, not someone who works in one. I mean, clearly they have a strategy to try to appeal to working class voters, try to, twist the knife on Harris. But I still found these images to be jarring.
Well, part of what is so striking about them is that he's not trying to not be Donald Trump. Like some politicians go and they try to dress up as somebody they're not. He's still got the red tie. He's still so clearly himself. And I think this was an unbelievably smart move, because one thing that has differentiated Donald Trump from other really wealthy politicians is that he has never been seen as the aloof, the billionaire who would never deign to hang out with the commoners. Like, he has always sort of portrayed himself as, I'm the rich guy who doesn't really like the other rich guys. I'm one of you. And this is part of this. I think this was insanely smart.
Well, to that point, it is part of a larger effort on the Trump campaign to sort of soften Donald Trump's image. It's why you've seen his grandkids sort of appearing at the rally and also spoke at the RNC. There's a larger effort going on by the Trump campaign to appeal to some of those suburban women that he's currently losing.
The most humanizing moment in that clip was when he threw the salt over his shoulder. It was like such a normal reaction that anyone, he was like, oh, like we all do that when you're cooking or whatever. And so that was the most like normalizing and humanizing moment, I think, in this clip. But to your point, like, he still has his shirt on, his tie on. Like most politicians would have showed up in like a collared shirt or something that said McDonald's and tried to like more fit in. I did find it striking that the whole restaurant was shut down and it was just sort of like a staged event, but I do think it is definitely like poking at the vice president.
I will also say, though, him showing up with Grimace in that old ad, I bet that gets some more traction, because Grimace is like a thing with Gen Z. Like,
is he?
Yes, it's
all
a thing.
the TikTokers, yeah.
It's a thing.
Oh, see, you guys are cooler than me.
I've just read about it. I'm not even
All right, coming up here on.
Yeah, so clearly you had a little bit of hate there, right? But for the most part, they all know that this was a good move, right? They all know that this was genius what Trump did. And it really did bring attention to a lie that Kamala Harris told, which, by the way, these people keep saying, well, there's no evidence that Kamala Harris didn't work at McDonald's. And I'm like, okay, well, there's no evidence that she worked there, right? I mean, I'm not sure how this is supposed to work. You can make any claim without evidence, right, to support that claim, in which McDonald's has come out and said, yeah, we can't verify that she actually worked here. Okay, so she had no evidence whatsoever she worked there, but yet we're supposed to believe it, right? That's supposed to take priority over claims that she didn't work there when there is no evidence that she worked there, right? I'm just saying, the fact that she doesn't have evidence that she worked there, that McDonald's can't verify that she worked there, is evidence that she didn't work there, right? She needs to provide some evidence that she worked there. You know what she could do if she really wanted to make Trump look like a fool? She could just provide evidence, right? If she actually provide real evidence that she worked at McDonald's, then this whole campaign move from President Trump would backfire, right? That would be the easiest way to make Trump look silly, and to make this move backfire is to provide evidence and say, well, I did work at McDonald's, right? So again, this whole troll was just kind of silly, right? Saying that I didn't work at McDonald's. here's my proof. She doesn't have proof, okay? And that's why this stunt was genius, okay? That's why this stunt is hilarious, okay? Because everybody knows that she's lying. So, of course, you're going to have haters, like, for example, the cackling hands on The View, who are not going to like this move from Trump very much, who hosted Tim Walz, who clearly is fuming as being a part of the Kamala Harris campaign. He is fuming over this move from President Trump because he brought it up during a conversation with the cackling hands, and he's probably upset because his campaign stunt of pretending as if he is a hunting man and that he's this normal white guy, his stunt didn't work. So again, this is why he's upset about Trump's move actually being successful. Take a look.
So you're out hunting pheasants.
Yep.
Is that enough to convince people there's a middle ground on this issue? Because right now, right-wingers are coming after you for how you handle your shotgun.
Well, I can shoot better than all of them. I guarantee it. I got the trophies to prove it.
What do you say about the perception the opponent that the economy is doing poorly, and what?
Yeah.
And what do you say to these Americans who feel like they're struggling?
Yeah, well, if they're saying they are, they are. And I think for all of us of prices being out there, I think that's why Vice President Harris has made it very clear that that is a top priority, whether it's focusing on home ownership, which we know these proposals work. If you do things with down payment assistance and you create 3 million more homes, we were able to do it on a state level in Minnesota. Now Minneapolis has 12% more homes and rents went down 4% last year. This can work on a national level. And then this idea of price gouging and price fixing. 37 states already have this in play. You saw when there's a hurricane in Florida, airline tickets shot through the roof. That's not capitalism. That's price gouging. And I think then focusing on the tax cuts going to them. And it's important for us to talk about what Donald Trump is going to do because he did keep a promise his first term. He cut taxes for the wealthiest. He drove up the debt to numbers we haven't seen. And this time he's coming after things like Social Security and Medicare, calling them Ponzi scheme that won't work. So I think the message has to go to talk to people. I think it's connecting, as I say. Vice President Harris and I grew up middle class. We understand that. She actually worked in a McDonald's. She didn't go and pander and disrespect McDonald's workers by standing there in your red tie and take a picture. His policies are the ones that undermine those very workers that were in that McDonald's, whether it's home ownership, health care, reproductive rights, or cost of products. So there's more work to be done. But just to be very clear, nothing Donald Trump is proposing does anything about the middle class. And every economist, Moody's themselves, talked about what it would do to drive up inflation, potentially leading us to recession. So there's more work to be done. We acknowledge that. I think the vice president's proposals are real. They make a difference, and we need to continue that.
Well, one of the things...
Wow, I just cannot believe The View. Actually, I can't believe it because The View is really dispute because that's what Tim Walz just did there, right? He just did dispute, okay? Let's just make stuff up. Let's just make shit up. That's literally what he did. He claims that Trump's policies hurt McDonald's workers while citing a bunch of talking points that are not actual policies that he claims hurt McDonald's workers. However, when you look at the Democrats and what happened under Kamala Harris's administration and Joe Biden, inflation went up significantly, which definitely hurt McDonald's workers. The cost of housing went up significantly. Real wages declined, which definitely hurt McDonald's workers. Gas prices went up, which definitely hurt McDonald's workers. All these things that he is citing, claiming that Trump did to hurt McDonald's workers, are actually what happened under the Biden-Harris administration, right? That's the hilarious part about this. Democrats are very good at projecting, right? They're very good at projecting and offending people. That's the only thing that the Kamala Harris campaign has been good at because they can't even articulate what Kamala Harris would have did differently than Joe Biden, which is what Tim Walz was confronted on by the cackling hens on The View. The same question they confronted Kamala Harris on, probably the question that single-handedly ruined Kamala's campaign. And Tim Walz, like Kamala Harris and most Democrats, he absolutely face-planted when answering this question. He cannot answer the question in a meaningful way. Take a look.
Governor, voters are saying change is a critical issue this election. But our ABC poll shows only a third of Americans believe a Harris-Walz ticket would bring that change. I want to pose a similar question to you that we asked Vice President Harris. Can you point to a policy decision over the last 4 years that you and the vice president would have handled differently from President Biden?
Well, I think this expansion on Medicare is something that I wished would have been proposed sooner. But look, they're tackling the issues that they needed to. They came out of a pandemic that Donald Trump had left a mess for, an economy with supply chains that were broken. But I think focusing on this care economy, the two things that the vice president proposed that I hear everywhere, especially in rural America, is this issue of affordability on child care and the ability of seniors to get health care, protecting that. So I think just in this last week, you saw a major rollout in protecting rural hospitals. This is a big issue. We have ambulance deserts in large parts of America, Minnesota included, where you can't do that. And I think she's really leaning into these issues that impact people personally, and then doubling down on whether it's housing or child tax credit. Those are pretty big differences. And I don't think that's a pejorative towards it. There were other issues that were being dealt with, and she's her own leader. She's got her own path, a new way forward. And I think she sees in Minnesota that we have similar values, whether it's providing kids with meals at school. You know, we're putting meals in our schools and trying to get guns out of them. That seems like a good thing, and that's what she's doing.
Yeah, so he has nothing. Josh Shapiro had nothing. Kamala Harris has nothing. No Democrats have anything when it comes to answering this very simple question, which is, can you point to a policy difference that you would have changed? What would you have done differently than Joe Biden? They have nothing at all. They lay an egg every single time. Okay, they face plant. Right? That's what happens. They wet the bed. That's what they do. Because there is nothing different about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, right? Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are just Joe Biden 2.0. It's a continuation of the terrible policies that have plagued this country that is the main reason, in my opinion, that Kamala Harris is doing bad right now. She's doing terribly, okay? And as long as they refuse to articulate any meaningful difference between her and Joe Biden, they're going to continue to struggle, right? So it seems to me that they're doubling and tripling down on not answering this question in a meaningful way and hating on Trump, right? Because that's what Tim Walz was doing. He was hating on Trump. He's mad because Trump's campaign move worked in regards to appealing to working class voters and humanizing him. And his little stunt, trying to pretend to be a man's man, a real man, all that did was just turn people off, right? And that's the difference here, okay? Trump is authentic. They're not. They're very fake. They're very inauthentic. And the American people simply do not trust them to make any meaningful change. Again, part of the reason why is because they can't articulate any real way they will make any changes. So I want Democrats to continue running this failing campaign, because that's exactly what's happening here. They're running to the ground, and you love to see it. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.